Hello everybody, Uome back with another video. This one's going to probably end up revolving a lot around aircraft again, like my last video, and again it is going to be the modern era. However, there may be some things that I will end up talking about, which you could also link into the lower tiers, such as World War II, which many people do also enjoy. I'm going to just jump straight into it, since that's what I do best, and we'll see where it goes from there, since I have got a few points that I want to make here, which I didn't make in my last one, or perhaps only just about touched on. Something that I see a lot of people mention in this game is they want to see harder tracking missiles. They want to see missiles which are harder to get away from, maneuver faster, go faster, those sort of things in general. And whilst it's a nice idea having those added to the game, the only problem is we don't currently have a counter for them, even for the ones in game. Because you could say, yes, you can pull away from them, but then what are you going to do once that missile can perhaps turn with you? We need to push something such as chaff, flares, before we push anything like this to this game. So I don't get why people seem to be pushing all these fancy techs when no one's really worrying about the counter to it. I see a few people argue for the counter against it, but I generally see more people wanting to push these higher tech weapons more. The thing that we should be pushing are these countermeasures, and then the problem is, say we don't push them, they get added to the game, which has happened with a few things now. There is no counter for them, and then there ends up being this whole new problem that people complain to Gaijin about, which is, oh, there's no counter to it, it's unfair, top tier is not fun, etc. General, just top tier is not fun. You've all heard it before. Low tier, fun tier, top tier, not fun tier, top tier cancer, all those things, etc. You've all heard it. If you push the countermeasures beforehand, then I'd rather see missiles become pointless for a short period of time until those new ones are added, than see new missiles added and absolutely dominate the skies for too long of a time. I'd rather go back to a time where we didn't have any missiles, basically, and then develop chaff, develop flares, they're all in the game, and then later on down the line release these higher G-tolerance missiles, harder tracking missiles. You see them on helicopters. Did you imagine if we had things like the R60Ms, things like the, I forget which AIM it is, but the AIM 9 on or the AIM 9S, or AIM 9 on the AH-1Z currently in the game, and with the new helicopter that's just recently been released in the devlogs, and what that one has, which I can't remember exactly what they are, but I believe they're some variant of Stinger missile. They track a lot harder than the current AIMs that we have in games, such as the AIM 9B. The AIM 9B tracks being one of the worst ones that we could possibly have, which is fair, it's a good implementation. Moving away from that, since I'm fairly certain many people have probably heard this already, what I've just said, and have their own opinion on it, however I'm trying to get you to see the cause here. New callouts for pilots, especially at top tier. One big problem I see is the callouts don't actually change from rank 1 up to rank 7 jets. They don't change at all, they're still exactly the same callouts. I'm talking about callouts such as you launch a missile, I don't know, depending on what the missile is, depending on what's added to the game by the time that the callouts will be added. Fox 1, Fox 2, Fox 3, and not Fox 4, that would be guns, guns, guns. But perhaps the occasional idea of you fire your guns and then your person will cool down the radio, guns, guns, guns. Of course not to everyone else, just for you, and there would be an option for you to disable it in the menu. Same with missiles, same with flares, same with if you're on fire perhaps. Any callouts like that, I don't personally know those callouts, perhaps it's just fire. You'd have to let me know down in the comments below, but it's just an idea. Or perhaps also on top of that, add to the current system we have in game for callouts, new callouts such as weapons hot, weapons free, etc. Personally, I think that would add a lot more dynamics, like I spoke about in my last episode, to do with how the game flows. If you put this all on top of what I mentioned before, which is the idea of covering bombers, or what is that bomber? Okay, just ignore that. On top of this, the idea that I had before, which I spoke about in my last video, which was about protecting bomber formations, things like that, as I'm doing here in my own sort of way. Personally, for me, I see that as just being awesome. Just the idea of having all these extra callouts, which perhaps not everyone would always use, because I don't generally use callouts myself, but that's mainly down to the fact that they're just none there that really help me, apart from attack this target, etc., the general normal ones that you have. But I would prefer it so much more if there was a simple slider to turn on and off, simple sayings that your pilots would perhaps say just to you, or perhaps you could implement a way to say it across the radio and then other people could disable that depending on how annoying it gets. Because I do understand it can be spammed, etc. Mainly, that's a big problem with these sort of ideas and that, but why not have something which just makes it just a more dynamic environment, more interesting just for you? And on top of that, perhaps the top tier vehicles change the sayings currently in game, such as attack this enemy to confirm hostile, or something along those lines. How much more interesting that would be overall, and how much more dynamic and realistic really overall it would make it feel when playing these top tier vehicles. Because it's all nice and fancy, them adding these new thermal optics, which I love. But then just quickly going off the topic here, what's going to happen to branch the gap between the vehicles that have and haven't got those optics? Because there's going to be vehicles like that. And on top of that, where's the balance going to be between vehicles such as the Panther 2, for example, which should really get its own primitive version of... What are all those O2s? No, okay. Its own primitive version of... On top of this, I'd like to quickly throw in that I would like to see night vision for all aircraft in-game apart from World War II ones, or perhaps have a modification for certain World War II planes which could have had them. Although I don't really need to say too much on this because I feel like that may actually happen this patch coming in update 1.91. On top of this, I'd like to see a new missile incoming screen, along with altitude warning systems. I will quickly put up on screen now just a image of Armour 3's missile incoming screen. So currently I'm just flying the Chinook over to the location. There we go. Missile's been launched, I'm flaring up. Missile failed to hit the target. This actually gives you a indication as well as to where the enemy is, which is why I think it will also help with actually finding where a target is as well. And there you see, I've just been hit. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any current videos, soundboards which showed the altitude warning system. If you've ever played something like BCS Worlds, I'm fairly certain you can find it on there in certain aircraft. Although obviously I could understand how this would become annoying, so obviously there would be another switcher, a board, a button you can press to disable this noise. But personally I would think that all of the ideas that I have came up with so far, if they were all implemented to top tier could be something which people would actually want to get. There'd be a difference between the lower tiers and the higher tiers, which I see Gagey trying to do in this next update with the new optics. The only thing we need now is higher variant zooms and bigger map. For the missile incoming screen, I personally, whenever I played Armour 3, loved it. It kept me knowing what was going on, and the problem in the game currently that we have is knowing whether or not you've got a missile on board. Whether or not it's realistic as to whether or not you can be warned about this missile incoming, I don't really care about, because from a gameplay point of view it's incredibly frustrating when you get locked onto, and then that happens. And the missile is sent your way, but you're not even warned about it in any which way forward. I would much prefer to have some sort of noise, something that I could associate with that missile tracking system that is currently on you, than the current in-game one that we have, which is just this blinking line of text that you have across the middle of the screen. It's not engaging, you don't always notice it when you're in the heat of action following someone, chasing someone down, and it doesn't even always show up. On top of this, I'm going to quickly move on to modifications for aircraft. The only real problem that I see is better, more modern G-suit modifications, because currently the only ones that I see in game are the World War II ones that you can research, and they really don't help that much, to be honest. I'd like to see more modern ones of them, perhaps as the entry modifications on the line. Obviously this would increase the gap between spaded and not spaded, but it is something that we do need, especially now that we're branching into a lot more of the modern era with the F-100, the MiG-19, and it's only going to get newer and newer from here on out. On top of this, a new mechanic that I would also like to see is if you go and look at videos of jet aircraft taking off, increasing speed, etc., you'll find one eventually where the afterburners, the rear exhaust outlet, changes size depending upon afterburning rates, etc. I don't personally know whether it is down to afterburning rates, acceleration, throttle, whatever. You can let me know down in the comments. I'm not the person here to go and find that stuff out. I'm just letting you know because it is something that I have personally seen, and I'm sure many of you guys have also seen. It's not a necessity, but I would like to see that implemented into the game, and I'm fairly certain the F-100 that I'm flying right now would realistically have it, where it changes size depending on afterburner or not. On top of this, to do with aircraft performance and visuals during the game, I would also like to see flex in the wings of aircraft at high-speed manoeuvres. You've probably heard someone mention this before, and I'm fairly certain I have too, but I just wanted to reinforce this idea. We need that in-game. We don't need it. It's something that's not a necessity again, but it's something that would be nice to have, and I understand if they can't add it, because I can understand sort of coding issues or whatever that it would possibly implement, but it would also serve as a visual reference to when your wings are going to snap, or whether you feel like, oh, that's a bit too hard that I'm pulling. Because if you go and look at videos of jet aircraft, practically any aircraft going fast enough, turning, and they have a camera looking out onto their wing, you'll see the wings flex up and down depending upon G-forces and the speed that they're going in relation to that speed. Just to finish off, I'd like to put on a really quick word just for the upcoming update on 1.91 and how I personally feel that it's going to go. So far, I like where it's going. I like that they're adding helicopters, but I dislike that so far all of the ones that we've seen apart from one have been premium. And the premium helicopters we are seeing are incredibly powerful in terms of their armament, and especially their design of the new French one, I believe, that is coming out. On top of this, I am also liking that they're focusing a lot on game mechanics. A large game mechanic, of course, being what most people have probably seen by now, the MVGs and thermal optics, which they're going to hopefully add to the game. And since they're doing this massive overhaul, it looks to be two different types of optics. I am personally wondering whether they're going to make any difference to the current ones that we have in game and the current vehicles that we have in game and their maximum zoom range, or if they're going to possibly add in changeable zoom rates instead of just having a not zoomed out and a zoomed in mode, having in between ones, or perhaps a scroll wheel or some sort of variation of that where you can scroll in to that distance that you have set. Apart from that, honestly, it's shaping up to be pretty good. The vehicles which I'm looking forward to, of course, being the MiG-21, which I'm not too sure whether it's going to be added. Generally all of the modern day jets, really, I'm just looking forward to. Personally, so far I haven't seen anything I'm too interested in apart from the French helicopter which they're adding as a premium. Not too sure how I do feel about it being, well, as powerful as it currently is in the preview. I haven't flown it, I haven't seen it in game, obviously, but personally, from what I'm seeing, it's going to be an incredibly powerful vehicle, because I'm fairly certain Stinger missiles are quite long-ranged in terms of all aspects, lock-on ranges. Apart from that, I guess that's the end of the video, really. So I'll catch you all in the next one, which I'm hoping to make on tanks. I don't think I'll personally do any videos on naval, since I don't have enough knowledge on naval. I haven't built up enough of an opinion on naval, simply because I played a few games of it, and then just got bored because it was such a stale piece of gameplay, really. It could be so much more, but like many things Engaging does, it just isn't, unfortunately. I do hope for it to get better, and maybe I will make videos on it in the future, but as of right now, it doesn't look to be it. Next video will probably be on tanks. Until then, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and share if you haven't already. And have a good one, won't you all? I do hope that Naval Forces becomes one day what I hope it to become. Have a good one.